Welcome to The Recovering Perfectionist, where you'll learn all the hacks you need to get started and finished on your business or project. You'll connect with successful entrepreneurs who are in perfectionist rehab, unapologetically experimenting and balancing life, business, family, and me time. I'm your host and Chief Recovering Perfectionist, Claire Barton. Hi, Recovering Perfectionists. It's Claire Barton here, and I have got Angela Henderson from Angela Henderson Consulting with me today. How are you going, Angela?
Hey, Claire. How are you? I'm going well. And you?
Awesome. Yeah, good. Thank you. Wonderful to have you on the show. Now, I'm going to hand over to Angela to tell us a bit more about what she does. But before I do that, I just want to say that I've been a big fan of Angela's for quite a long time. She's the owner of Finley and Me blog and a billion other things. And I've seen her speak at a few places. We've met at quite a few beautiful networking events. And she's also speaking at my meetup event in September 2017. So that's going to be awesome. And we're going to be talking about Instagram strategies of all things at that one. But yeah, Angela, tell us a bit about where you're up to, what you're doing. Tell us about your business and what's happened in your business from kind of inception to where you're at now.
Yes, obviously, I initially have started with Finley and Me, and we've been going now for 7 years in September. And that started off just with an idea that, the baby products in Australia were quite horrible. So I started bringing on different baby products that focused on creating childhood memories through play, love, and travel, while at the same time nurturing creativity, sparking imagination, and again, linking it back to childhood memories. So we now sell over 1,400 different baby products at Finley and Me, which range from baby products all the way through to about the age of 6.5. So that's really exciting. With the products, we then started blogging. And so once I started blogging, we now have a very successful blog, which actually probably I like more than selling the baby products at the moment, which is great. I've been signed with Netflix as one of their top 30 bloggers in Australia, which is super exciting. And with Neffning, which is Australia's leading agency for bloggers, as one of their top 25. So blogging is kind of a big passion of mine. But after that, I started getting asked for coffee all the time with a whole bunch of different people to pick my brain. And I eventually saw that the information I had would be valuable to other small businesses or startups. So I'm now also a business consultant. I've been doing that. It will be a year in September, so not long away. And I've got 12 clients on board, and we talk about everything business related. So that's a little bit about me.
Amazing. I really love that. And I didn't know all of that information, actually. So that's really, really helpful. So Angela, the thing that you and I often kind of cross over with, and something that we're both obviously passionate about, is that content marketing. You've just mentioned about blogging. We're obviously both pretty in love with social media and the marketing side of social media and that sort of thing. So something that I would love for you to share with the listeners and with me and anyone else who's kind of watching the show or whatever, how content marketing is obviously a massive beast, and there's a whole institute devoted to it, and there are millions of people who either do it as a job or they teach it or whatever. So what are some of the foundations of content marketing, and why is it so amazing for people who get it right?
Listen, I think there's an opportunity for not only sales but branding, connections. I mean, the opportunities are endless, really, if you do it well. And I guess my first thing, like I know you and I've talked about in the past, is I think, don't worry about doing it well at the beginning, just go and do it. Yeah. Because once you go and do it, and practice makes perfect. And again, I'm not wanting people to be perfect either. What I'm saying is you'll be more efficient, and it will just come naturally to you. So just get out there and do it. And it doesn't matter whether or not you're writing a blog piece or whether or not you're putting content up on Facebook or Instagram, whatever your platform is, just go and do it. So that's kind of my first kind of realm. Align yourself with people who are already doing it well, so you don't have to go through the same mistakes that other people do. I see that so often, that someone will be blogging for 2 or 3 years, and when they come to me for something, I'm just like, oh, you just need to tweak that, you just need to do that, and they're like, that's it. And so I think there's this perception that you have to do more, and sometimes you don't actually have to do more. Less can actually be more efficient for you.
Yeah, totally.
So that would be kind of my things. Just get out there and do it, practice, and align yourself with good people.
Yeah, exactly. And we talk about that a lot on the show, obviously, is to just sort of get started and not worry about having everything completely planned or having everything completely perfect, or, you know, having to hire an amazing, you know, big time coach in terms of how to blog. Like if you, you know, something that's kind of really been effective for me, and that's been part of my process and learning, is that everything that you're already doing is content. So content is everything. You send an email to someone, that's content. You reply to a message, that's content. You reply to something on a Facebook group, that's content. You put something on your website, that's content. You write a blog, so like everything is already kind of content. So as long as you know, can understand at the moment what your core message is, and that might change in 6 months or 12 months, or you might refine it, or you might broaden it, and that's okay. So it's kind of, you know, whatever you need to talk about and whatever you think is important for your people to hear, or whatever you're really passionate about, that's already content. So you don't need to worry about necessarily having the most beautifully structured blog or having all the bells and whistles. Just getting something out there is a really, really effective way to kind of get started. So yeah, I think that's really cool.
I think that's very important, that it doesn't have to be the most beautiful, it doesn't have to be this, but you said something just a minute ago about the client, you know, or your customer. And my thing there is again, don't write content unless you know who your customer is and who you're speaking to, because you'll actually be wasting time. And that has nothing to do with being a perfectionist. That has everything to do about knowing who your person is. So for me, again, is when I talk about my blogging, when I do speaking about blogging, I talk about the two things you should do prior to writing your blog is, one, survey your current audience, because your audience will tell you what type of content to write. They will tell you what they are struggling with. So whether or not it's about depression, whether or not it's about systems for their business, whether or not it's about how to start a conference, whatever that looks like, they will tell you. So whereas if you're assuming what they want to hear, you're going to run into big problems, because they're not going to want to read it, and they're more than likely going to drop off and not want to be in or around you. Not because you're a bad person, but because you're not providing them value. So one, survey your audience, and you can do that really easily just by like a Survey Monkey. If you have a Facebook group, just go in there and do a poll, like, hey, what are the top 5 things you're struggling with right now? Boom, 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 boom. Like in my consulting business, that's what I do in my own business group, is I just ask questions. And so they're not very out there questions, but it's questions that I need answered in order to understand what direction I need to go in. Survey your audience, but also equally understand who your ideal client is. Where are they sitting? Do they have kids? Do they not have kids? Do they like organic? Do they not like organic? You know, whatever that looks like, because I think it's super important. And then from those two combined, start writing, and you will see great things happen.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting thing that sometimes you accidentally, and I definitely was guilty of this. Well, I wouldn't even say guilty, it was part of the process. But when I first started writing blogs, and I've had a couple of blogs in the past that have been very much about personal stuff. Like I did one for 30 days before I turned 30 and that sort of thing, like 30 things in 30 days before I turned 30. But, you know, when I started doing the business one, I look back now at what I was writing 2 years ago, it was very, it was almost like an online journal. So this is what I'm going through. But that's kind of cool. Like that was my story. And now that I can look back and say, that was actually part of, you know, my learning process and my induction into my business and kind of experimenting and working out where I sat. But it was very much, you know, a kind of almost like a personal blog rather than a business one. And it gave me a voice, and it gave me some confidence, because I got some great feedback from it about the style and the feel of it. And it was literally like someone was sitting down listening to, like we're having a conversation on the couch rather than, you know, sitting down and reading full on blog and that sort of thing. But definitely now that I really know who my people are and who I want to work with and what their pain points are, it's taken it to the next level. So it's definitely, definitely agree with it, with that point about knowing who you're writing to. So yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And now in terms of, you mentioned before, or we were chatting about it before we started recording, about having some sort of efficient, like a really efficient content. So every time you're doing a blog or a social media post, what are some of the things that, like, what's the point of it? I guess before we go into the elements of it, what's the point of content in your mind?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, content is really about connection, because if I can connect with people, then ultimately, and provide them value and form relationships, I should then be able to hopefully convert, you know, and whatever that looks like. So for me, I will my blogs were never about a personal journey. They were all about strategy. So I had a strategy that if I'm selling 1,400 baby products and all my posts on Facebook are trying to sell to my audience, they're going to get sick of that very, very quickly. So I needed to bring in a strategy that would keep those clients there who may not be buying from me now, but will buy from me later because they'll start to trust me. So I need to bring them on a journey from going to a cold client to a hot client who wants to buy from me. So that was my strategy with that. In regards to now, it's still, there's always a strategy. What if I post this, what's going to happen? What's in it for them, but what's in it for me? Because I think it's important to realize that we're all very time poor in a very noisy world at the moment. So I can't just choose to, well, I can choose, but I'll probably get nothing from it. And what I mean by that is if I go and write a blog article for 2 hours and I go live and all it is crickets, well, I'm never going to get, like, that was 2 hours of my strategy time to try and grow my business that I've just compromised. So I do feel that it's important to always have a strategy. So I'm not just sure if that's helpful or not with that, Claire, but I think, yeah, you need a strategy with any of your content, whether or not it's video, whether or not it's when you go Facebook Live, etc. But again, know your audience, because I don't want to be a hypocrite, but there are times on Finley and Me, for example, when I do go live and I just go live. So, but it's because I know my audience is mums, and a lot of them are sitting in their pajamas at home with screaming children, and they get what I'm about to say because I'm lying on the couch going, anyone else dealing with this crap right now? We get a huge amount of reach from it. But so I guess I'm being authentic because I know my audience very, very well. Whereas if you just went live and you're just talking just to talk and there's no purpose behind it, then you again potentially compromise your branding, and people could stop trusting you because they've just taken 10 minutes of their life to watch you. You've provided them with no value. You sound a bit like a wanker. And now, like, yeah, and then so now you see people drop off. So have a strategy. You know? It doesn't have to be a huge, you don't have to sit down there and strategize for hours. Just go, this is what I'm going to talk about. This is how I'm going to execute it. Yeah.
And so it's important to have things like calls to action, obviously, which we'll talk about in a minute. But are you saying that, like, for every blog, there needs to be a what's in it for me and a what's in it for them? So giving them value, but also what I want back, or what I want to do for you. And that could be as simple as that know, like, and trust factor, or that connection and that sort of thing. Or it could be, I want you to actually come and sign up for this and give me your email address, or I want you to pay for this or buy this thing, or, you know, something like that. So there's always, it can't just be, I've just spent an hour and a half writing this thing and here you go, just have it, do whatever you want with it, sort of thing. There's actually got to be a bit of give and take and
absolutely. I mean, I think people would be lying if they say they only write for their audience. It would be, but if you're not getting paid to write for your audience, then what are you getting out of it? Now, if it's joy, that's great. If you don't need to make money, let me know how you're doing it, because we all need money, you know, but genuinely, if it's joy and that's what makes you happy, or, you know, if you're going through a bad time with depression or something and that's what, but again, that there still would be a give and take. You're still getting joy and pleasure from writing to other people, you know, so you're still getting something from it. I guess it just might not be monetary, but, you know, I'm all about, it has to be a give and take for both sides.
Yeah, I think it's such an important part to remember. And I think we had Siobhan Joyce speak at the Business by Recovering Perfectionist meetup recently, and she talked a lot about overwhelm. You know, women especially who have businesses, and we've often got families and we've got other stuff going on, that we're also in that, you know, people pleasing kind of thing. And every time someone says, do you want to have a coffee? You're like, yeah, I'll go and have a coffee. And you go to, we were talking about it before, you go to every meetup and every networking thing that you're invited to. And you know, my grandmother would have said she goes to the opening of an opening of an envelope or whatever it is, you know, that sort of thing. But actually, we need to be really strategic and specific about the things that we are spending our time on, because we don't have a heap of it. And I think, yeah, if you've got a goal, and I do think it's really important to have goals on an 80-20 basis, you know, there's got to be room for flexibility and play and creativity and all that sort of thing. But having a goal, and having, even if it's a lifestyle goal, like I want to have X amount of hours to do whatever during the week, or by the end of the year, I want to be able to go on a holiday, like whatever the goal is, whether it's a monetary, a time, or a lifestyle, anything like that. If that's your goal and you're filtering your activities through it, it just makes things a lot easier to say no to, and also to make sure that you're squeezing, you know, as much value out of it as possible. So we talked a bit earlier before about what sort of elements to put in there to make sure that every time you are spending time creating content, whether it's a blog or a video or a podcast or social media blog, social media posts and that sort of thing, that time isn't just frittered away and you put it on your website and then it sort of sits there and dies and doesn't actually do anything for you. So what can people do if they are doing things like blogs and podcasts and social media interaction and that sort of thing? What elements absolutely have to be in there?
Yeah, so I mean that would probably be a whole other podcast, because just my 11 steps for a successful blog would take me probably an hour and a half to present. So yes, but I mean really the things that are in there that would be again, like survey your audience, know who your ideal client is, but then if you're going to write a blog, in my opinion, you might as well also SEO optimize it. Like there's no point, in my opinion. Now, yes, it's harder to rank for things at the moment because there's so much content being on there, but you just never know what Google's going to pick up and crawl of yours.
Yeah,
You never know. So, doing things like your SEO titles, your blog titles, and those are two different things. People think they're the same, but they're different. Mm-hmm. Doing your meta descriptions, finding out what keyword you're targeting for, doing internal linking to other blogs, doing external linking to other businesses, to help their SEO grow and to build relationships with. Having a bio at the end of your blog that talks about who you are and what you do to add trust and credibility to your blog piece. I'm trying to think, making sure that your images are all sized down accordingly so that they aren't large images on your site, because if they are large, what's happened is your website will start to run slow, and then Google's actually going to start penalizing that very shortly with images and slowness and etc. So that's going to be a problem. You then also make sure that all your images are alt text accordingly based on keyword and or what words people would look for. So I guess it's a big wraparound, and it takes probably a little bit extra time, but again, it's about being efficient. And if you're going to do it well, you might as well do it because that's your piece. Mm-hmm. If you want to get whatever your goal is accomplished, you might as well just do it right from the beginning. And when I started blogging, I didn't know all about that. It was just like, get a blog piece up, share it. And it still worked. But now that I know what I'm doing, it's a lot better. Once you do all those kind of technicalities, my last step always, and I literally say, is called share the shit out of it. Because people think that when you push publish, that's all you need to do. And it's probably your work hasn't even begun. So things like figure out what Facebook groups you can share it in. What other bloggers can you team up with to share each other's content on each other's platforms? What also going live, not only on live on Instagram, live on Facebook, doing an Insta story about your blog, putting it in your newsletter. I mean, these are all things that make you drive the traffic to your site. Because if you can drive the traffic to your site and you have a Facebook pixel on your site, for example, you can then re-advertise to those people who have come to you. So they still might be a warm, because they've gone from a cold client to, or customer, whatever word you want to use, onto your site. So now they're warm because they know a little bit more about you and you can retarget them. So again, you have to make sure that your Facebook pixel is installed correctly on your website in order for that to happen. But it's really, it's the blogging, for example, that content is it's a lot more complex than what I think people actually give it from a strategy point of view.
So in your opinion, would it be better to do one blog, say, every week that didn't have all the bells and whistles, or one a month that had some really great strategy behind it, like all those things that you've just mentioned?
Yeah. Listen, my friends Emma and Carla from the Merrymakers, we were talking about this a while ago, and when they first started, they actually, because there's obviously two of them, so there's a little bit more time that they have, but they would write a blog post every single day, and they would they were almost dying because it was just so difficult to try and get that content out. But what they realized was the same amount of people who said, because remember, Facebook doesn't show everyone the content because based on the algorithm, so not everyone was seeing their blog articles anyways. So then what would happen is the same amount of people that would click through over a 7-day period was the same amount of people who were clicking through in a 1-day period. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So again, my gut, what I would say is reality is that you need to do one, don't do it every day unless you're going to do everything correctly. And 2, work on one piece and do one piece, a week really, really well. I wouldn't go a month. I think you have to do weekly. And again, I'm not going to say I do that well myself sometimes when life gets busy, but we do aim for at least one good content piece a week.
Mm-hmm.
Because the other cool thing is once you get 35,000 page views on your website, you can also then apply to a thing called Mediavine, and Mediavine will place advertising. So for me, I make a few $100 extra US a month just by having that on there. So there are other ways then that you're monetizing your business based on your efforts of blogging. So which I think is, again, an important element, because there's different ways to monetize, not just through blogging.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I said at the beginning, it is such a can of worms. About probably 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, I had no idea what content marketing even was. And now that, I feel like my eyes are open to it, every time I talk to someone who's a content marketer or an expert in this, it just gets even wider. Like, there's just so much that you can do. And I get that for people, especially people starting out, or even if people are, been in business for a long time, but they're looking to up level their content and that sort of thing, it can be completely overwhelming to the point of just going, it's too hard, I can't do this. It does just get a bit full on. So I think my advice in that sense is often to just start where you can. Like, start small. If you've never done a blog, don't be going, I'm going to do one every single week, or I'm going to be doing one every day, or I'm going to go to, from 0 posts on Facebook to 5 a day or something like that. It's not realistic. And it's, you might do it for a week or two, and then you'll realize that there's also life, and that's just not going to happen.
Absolutely.
So anything that can kind of, you can kind of start out with. So in Batshit Crazy, for example, one of the first modules is to do a stock take. So they actually go through and have a look what's already on my website. What have I already posted in Facebook groups? What have I already sent emails about? What sort of content already exists, and try and upcycle it, recycle it, reuse it, whatever you need to do to kind of zhuzh it up a little bit and make it a little bit shinier and new. And kind of do that, because I think when you're actually starting out, even if you've got a website, you've actually got a lot of content that you didn't think of as content. So in that sense, I think it's great to just start somewhere, set a goal for like the next month, but not for the entire, your entire business or whatever. So what sort of tips have you got for the recovering perfectionists out there who don't necessarily want to do it completely perfectly and amazingly straight off the bat? But how can people get started?
Yeah, I would say, again, find someone in their niche that's already doing it well. And again, it's not about copying someone in your niche. It's just about looking at what they're doing and what's working. Because if you can learn from them, then you don't have to spend 80 hours trying to learn it again. So find someone in your niche market and reach out to them. And if they don't want to work with you or help you, mentor you or whatever, then just watch from a distance.
Absolutely.
2, I would say, just get started. There's no point, just get started. Because it's kind of like ripping a Band-Aid off. Once you do it, you'll be fine. Or you go to the gym, like I hate going to the gym, and I'm like, oh my God, I hate it. But when I'm there, I love it. And it's kind of like the same thing. Yeah. Once you start writing, you'll be fine. But remember though, too, blogging, content marketing isn't just blogging. So remember, people consume information differently. And I think it's an important element that people are missing, is that people know your demographic. You need to ask them, how are you reading content? Are you absorbing content? Is it via video? Is it via Instagram? Is it via blog? Whatever. Because again, if you're blogging and your readers aren't actually reading blogs, then we've got a problem again. So
that's it.
But if they are liking Facebook Lives, just start on Facebook Live. And the beautiful thing there again is that you can retarget people based on how long they watch your Facebook video for. So it's another great advertising tool if you've got 1,000 viewers and they all watched half of your video, they've gone from a cold to warm client, then just retarget them. I mean, it's easy. You don't have to worry about all those 11 steps I told you about. But I guess what I like to do is, I think, and this is what I've worked out and it works for me, is that I do content differently all the time. So some weeks it could be a blog, some weeks it's a Facebook Live, some weeks it's harder on my Insta stories. So what I do is I try to put that out in different avenues to see, what's working and what's not working. Again, kind of test things is, I guess, what my third tip is. Go and figure out what works best for your audience. It could, where are they sitting most? My fourth tip would be choose 2 platforms that you really like. So what I mean by that is, content, if you're looking at trying to do Twitter and Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook and write a blog and do your newsletters, you're more likely to fail and quit. That's the reality.
Yep.
So choose one, but if you can, choose two where your audience is sitting, and do them as well as you can, and just get started. So yeah, those would be my 4 main tips.
Absolutely love it. And yeah, couldn't agree more. If you try and do everything, it's too overwhelming. Just nail a couple to start with, and then once those are ticking along nicely with minimal effort, and you know me, I'm all about systems and repeatability and outsourcing. So all of those sorts of things that can make those things easier once you've done it for a little while and you've kind of refined how that all works for you. And obviously it's got to be where your people are. So there's no point in mastering something like Snapchat if none of your clients and none of your ideal clients are on Snapchat. There's, all that sort of thing. So yeah, I think
absolutely,
that's all really beautiful. Awesome. Well, that has completely blown my mind, and I want to go away and give my blog some love and do some of those things that you mentioned, because I'm probably not the greatest at doing those things either. But yeah, that's been awesome. Thank you so much for your help with all of that.
You're very welcome.
And how can
Thank you for having
people
me.
get in touch with you if they want to know more, if they want to have some more Angela Henderson love in their life?
Yeah, so I guess I was going to say, when in doubt, always also ask for help, because so many times our brain starts playing games with us going, oh, should I do this? Should I do this? I don't know if I'm doing this. And you start second guessing yourself. Yep. So I always say, just reach out in different Facebook groups where you're connected with and ask people for help, and you'll be blown away with the amount of help people will give you. Yep. But if you ever need any help, listen, my arms are always open to helping anyone, because I used to be in that same position, I guess, trying to find my way through. So I think it's important that we give back to others. Absolutely. So you can find me in my Facebook group, which is called the Australian Business Collaborative. Or if you want to book in for a free 30-minute session with me, you can go to www.angelahenderson.com.au and book in there. And I'd love to have a chat with you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I might go and book on one of those sessions myself. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
We'll talk to you really soon. But thanks so much for all those tips. It's been really, really helpful.
No worries. Bye.
Bye. And that is absolutely it, my lovely. So I hope you've really enjoyed the episode. It was great fun recording that one, as it is with all of them. If you'd like to connect, I'd love to stay in touch with you. I have a beautiful Facebook group community at bit.ly/The Recovering Perfectionist Crew, with all capital TRP and C. I have a massive goal this year to get 50,000 downloads on my podcast, and I've got a YouTube show as well. So I'd love for you to help me out if you can by either subscribing to the podcast on iTunes. So if you want to go over and do that now, that would be awesome. If you have a couple of favourite episodes, or if there's one favourite episode that you've really enjoyed, I would love you to share that with anyone who you think would get as much out of it as you have as well. And while you're in iTunes, if you can jump in and give it a review, that would be amazing. iTunes definitely helps out podcasts that have got some good ratings and reviews and some really interactive listeners. So I would really appreciate your help with getting to my goal of 50,000 in 2017. The show is also available over on YouTube. The links are always in the show notes, so you can head over there. So it's The Recovering Perfectionist on YouTube. There's a channel for that as well. So jump in and leave your comments. You can watch all of the episodes in video. So if you want to see what we look like and our crazy hand gestures and facial expressions and all of that sort of thing, absolutely jump in. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel show as well, and then you'll be kept up to date when there's some new episodes that come in there. So yeah, love your support. And if you want to shoot me an email, it's hello@clairebarton.com.au. Always happy to receive your emails and open up a conversation. All right, big love. I'll chat with you soon. Bye.